Monday, June 7th. And the other day I ranted about AR-15s. And they're dangerous weapons, and they're more dangerous than Swiss Army knives. But today I'm forced to talk a little bit more about gun violence. And what triggered this discussion right now is the fact that a 5-year-old boy was killed in Dallas by an 8-year-old boy. They were playing with a loaded gun in an apartment. They were not alone. The mother of the 5-year-old boy was there, but the question remained. How in the world does a kid get a gun, a loaded gun, in an apartment where there's an adult around? The gun should have been locked away. The clips in the gun shouldn't be there. And certainly, whoever's watching these kids should not be allowing them to play with a gun of any kind, let a loaded gun. And then the mother went hysterical when her son was shot, and I don't blame her for that. But by the time they got him to the hospital, he was dead. And so people can tell me that guns are for defense, but they are dangerous weapons to have around the house. And we have too many careless people in this country. And all the neighbors said what a nice woman she was and how well she took care of her children and everything. Well, I think the neighbors were wrong. So that's my first story today that involves a child or children. Second one is a very bizarre story. And here's what happened. A Florida man faces aggravated child abuse and other charges after throwing his infant at a deputy near the end of a high-speed chase in the Indian River County in Florida. Now, this guy is 32 years old. When you looked at the video of this episode, you saw the man being tackled by a police officer with another man, another policeman, standing by, cradling the infant in his arms. And what precipitated this event was some kind of high-speed chase. So at the end of the chase, the perpetrator left his car carrying his baby in his arms. And as the officers approached him, he just turned around, and this was not a little toss. He threw the kid, his 2-month-old child, like a baseball player. He threw that kid with one hand and whipped him at the officers from about 6 feet away. Fortunately, one of the officers caught the baby, and the baby was unhurt, and that's a wonderful thing. And the officers were able to relocate the baby to safety. That's according to the Florida Department of Children and Families, who are investigating this whole incident. Look at this incident. Police officers have to be ready for almost anything. But I'm willing to bet you that there's not another case in this entire country where a perpetrator threw a baby at the police. And the police's first reaction was to make sure that the kid was okay. Meanwhile, the perpetrator is trying to get away. But luckily, there were several other officers on the scene. And after they recovered from the shock of seeing this kid fly through the air, they were able to tackle the perp to the ground. He was struggling with the other officers. He wanted to get away from the police. And then the perp tells the police that he suffers from asthma. So they get an EMT there to make sure that he's not going to die on them. Now, this entire insane incident started on a state road in Vero Beach because the driver could not maintain his lane. So it looked to the police like the man was on something, drugs or alcohol or something, because he was weaving across the road. So the police car went up and tried to stop him, but he took off and drove for 40 minutes, and they were chasing him. And sometimes he banged into the detective's vehicle, and he was dodging roadblocks and barreling over the deflation devices. You know, those little cords of nails that they put on the road. He drove right over them. Finally, a law enforcement helicopter relayed James's location to the deputies, who were able to surround his car at an apartment complex. And there were many people in the street that were looking to defend this perp. So the police had to be very cautious about the way they handled the situation. Anyhow, the perpetrator now faces several counts of aggravated battery, and certainly a major count of aggravated child abuse, and an account of resisting arrest in a violent manner. Plus, there's some other charges against this guy. Apparently, he beat up a pregnant woman, and that's listed on the charges too. Now, the sheriff's department didn't tell us anything about his beating of the pregnant women, but it's in the booking charges. And not only that, he got to the hospital, and the hospital treated him for some pre-existing condition, which I guess was the asthma that he was complaining about. And he was booked and ordered held without bond. And at this point, I don't even know if the guy has an attorney. So when I read a story like this, it dawns on me how truly difficult it is to be a good policeman. And I don't mean good because he's kind or good-natured. I mean because he's expert in handling difficult situations. And I can't imagine a more difficult situation than having an infant thrown at me while trying to catch what turned out to be a violent perpetrator. Who would expect anybody to throw their baby? So this should be a reminder to many who are in favor of defunding police and changing the rules on police brutality and everything else that's going on in this country that's causing riots and things, to recognize the fact that the police have to deal with many unexpected conditions in the actions of performing their duty. So that's all I want you to remember this particular story when people talk about how bad the cops are, because not all of them are bad. 99% of them are good, hard-working stiffs who deal with situations that none of us would want to be in. So I leave you with those thoughts. Bye.